Welcome to another Forza Horizon 6 video. Today I'd like to talk about the games version of the Shuto Expressway. This is a highway network through and around Tokyo City in real life, and I've been fascinated by this whole thing ever since I started playing Tokyo Extreme Racer Zero back on the PS2, and then figured out that the whole thing is based on real roads and also a real illegal racing scene from the late 90s. So I'm glad that we've gotten this in the game at all. When it was announced that the next Horizon would be placed in Japan, I hope we would get to see something like this. It's pretty iconic, and yeah, what we've gotten here is of course a shrunk down version of Tokyo, but I'd still like to see what we've done here, how they compromised to get this in the game at all. I mean, of course they couldn't get the full-size Tokyo City in here. I don't know if it would have fit on the map at all, and if it did, it would have left precious little space for anything else. So of course everything is shrunk down, including the expressway, but I think there is still quite a few cool things worth talking about, like landmarks and the general layout. So yeah, this isn't going to be as much of a critique as just trying to compare and contrast with the real thing. But maybe I got a few pointers here and there which I would have liked to see. So another thing we need to talk about before getting into this whole discussion, up ahead I need to say that the real Shuto Expressway is a toll road. That means you will have to get a ticket when entering the expressway, and once you exit it at a later point, you will have to pay based on the distance from entry to exit point. That also means that it's not really fully integrated with the regular road network, it's kinda isolated. There are a lot of on and off ramps like with any highway, but it doesn't just go into an intersection and cross a regular road, it's all a bit standing on its own. You know when you enter the expressway and you know when you leave it. There being toll booths in real life is something that the game completely ignored, which I kinda get. Toll booths would likely narrow down the road quite a bit, certainly the case with the real thing, and for racing that wouldn't be all that amazing, so I get why they omitted all of those. So that's the first big difference. We only get to just drive on and off as we please, and we don't have to interact with any toll booths, so there aren't even anywhere to begin with. So let's take a look at the real route and compare it a bit. And to be clear, what we are looking at today is going to be the C1 route, which is marked here in light blue, but also the Tokyo Port Bridge, also known as the Rainbow Bridge, over here, and also the Daikoku parking area. So to start out with, I got a map of the real area, just right here. This is from the Tokyo Extreme Racer wiki. I modified it a bit to show a few more connections to other expressway sections that aren't in that game. On the default map, only the ones present in 3 were marked out. So we got a few ones leaving the visible area that are just slightly more in the background. But yeah, I think when it comes to the C1, which is the section we can currently see on that map, it's overall pretty close in shape. The real C1 is kinda shaped like a McDonald's nugget, and we roughly get a similar shape over here. Also, it's not like an American highway or even the German Autobahn or anything like this, at least not in the city. The roads are very curvy. There's a pretty low speed limit, only 60 kilometers per hour, and with how sharp some of these turns are, that's definitely justified. And I can already say from my time with Tokyo Extreme Racer Zero, the overall pace of the corners seems to be quite accurate. Everything is a bit more widened from what I can tell. It's a bit faster, but it doesn't feel out of place for what the C1 should be. So for what the game is striving to be, I think this is pretty accurate. A pretty good compromise at least. There's also the case of this area where we have a bit of a split in the road, and that's also present on the map in the corner there. If we look at the section going from the southmost point up to the northeast, there's a little yellow line, and that's the left part of the split here. That's the so-called Yaesu line, or Yesu, I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced. In real life, there's also a tunnel going a bit on from this point over here, so it would be going close to the train station and then coming back up to the rest of the highway section. But yeah, in this game, that's not the case. It's just a simple split, and we'll talk more about this in detail in a moment, but that's also kind of the area that gave me the idea for this video, because that's when I found out that there's actually something worth talking about here. But you know what? Enough about the talking. Let's get into a car and let's drive around. We are going to do a counterclockwise route here. Starting down here where the marker is, this is the so-called Ginza area. And we are just going to do a lap around and maybe even also check out the Yaesu line a bit. And yeah, this is one of the below ground sections. Very well known in real life, and also something that we've seen in Gran Turismo 7, for example. Usually there would be some pillars coming down from the bridges that go right in the middle, just as a solid lane splitter. Those are present in some places here and there, but in-game we don't have any of that. We are now at the northeast area, and this is pretty accurate to the real thing as well. We come up from below regular ground level up to a bridge section, and we have 3 different options to go here. The left is where we will go, and that keeps us on the C1. The middle one is a bit of a tricky one. Let me show you guys on the map. In-game, this is another connection to an outbound route. From what I can tell, in real life, this actually would be going a bit further this direction and then coming down, connecting to the street level at some point. So the entire thing turns into an on and off ramp after a while. But yeah, this here is just a connection going out of the city. So that seems to be a bit different. And of course we have the southbound area, which usually goes towards the Bayshore area, but here it goes over to Daikoku. But yeah, for now we are going to stay on the C1, which means taking a hard left turn, which is also accurate to what I saw in TXR. And yeah, from here we go over to the west area in real life. This is another intersection that's kind of accurate to real life, although it's a bit weird that in this game we don't really get the option to turn right over here from this direction. So there should usually be another ramp coming off from the left here, either going above or below the main expressway and then turning to the right. But as it is here, that's not an option. Theoretically, if we want to go that direction, we could have gone so from down there from the other point. And it's also kind of accurate to real life, because the Shuto Expressway, if you look closer, especially outside the C1, you don't always get all the connections at an intersection going each direction. There are some where you can only turn right if you come from the other direction, or something else entirely, so there aren't all the possible connections, but I assume they are all the necessary ones. So over here we got the first option to get on and off the expressway in-game. And as I said, with how the real one works, this would be completely inaccurate. We wouldn't ever go onto regular street level like this. There would be either the C1 connecting to the other side here with a bridge, or having the tunnel come up before this point, and the only thing connecting to the regular street would be some on and off ramps. So there could still be an intersection somewhat like this, but not with the main part of the C1. That would always have a bypass. Because at this point you wouldn't ever want to come off with C1 and then go back on it, because then you will have to pay the toll already and get another ticket. But there would potentially be an option for people who wanna get on here, and yeah, that's how that would work. Another interesting thing here, the game has a tunnel section from somewhere around here to where I am. And that's also pretty accurate to the real thing. There's also an extended tunnel section somewhere in this area in real life. The difference is, in real life the tunnels are separate. We don't just have one tunnel that houses both directions. And the tunnel shape is also different. In real life it's just more like a rectangular tunnel. So straight walls and a flat top. While here we of course have the arched half circle. So yeah, kinda accurate, but also kinda not. I don't know why they went with this kinda tunnel. Although then again, the devs are trying to get a lot of iconic parts in here. And while the rectangular tunnel shape is kinda iconic for from what I can tell, maybe this is from a different tunnel section for the expressway that I'm not really aware of. The next part over here, this is another on and off ramp part. And this one just feels weird. I don't know if there's any real life analog to this whole thing, but yeah. At least this isn't a straight up connection to regular roads. This could be on and off ramps on each side. This actually makes some sense. But I feel like if you have traffic coming in from here, having to merge this direction, and then also having traffic coming up from the tunnel and potentially having to merge out like this, all of that crossing traffic doesn't really feel that safe, at least not in my opinion. So I don't know about this one. Might be accurate to another section of the expressway, but it's certainly not on the C1, and this entire thing just kinda feels a bit weird. Might still work well for the game. Could potentially have a few interesting routes here coming on and off the expressway, but in terms of accuracy, this feels kinda doubtful. So on the real C1 we would now be on the southwest corner. Over here, since the entire thing is kind of rotated a bit differently, we are more on the northwest end. The upcoming intersection here is something that I don't really know about. This feels inaccurate to real life. But yeah, usually on this corner in real life there would be another part going off into different routes. But this right here, I don't know. And this is actually the first real on and off ramp. So if we follow this one, this is how it would look like in real life. Going off to the side here, connecting down to a regular road. This is the most accurate on and off ramp that I've seen so far. And there seem to be a few others. I think for the other direction there's one on the next road here, up ahead in this direction. And coming onto this line there is going to be another one further down this direction. And once again, while I'm not entirely sure about which intersection this is supposed to be. Having connections only in one direction once again works out pretty well and yeah, accurate to the real thing. Over here we got an on-ramp coming up, just from the left over here. And here we got one of the major intersections. So if we look at the map again, we would now be at the southmost point with the other route going straight down south here on the real version. Over here it's a bit different with how the entire thing is rotated. That road here should really go this direction, but it doesn't, and it connects straight to the Rainbow Road. We'll talk about that in a moment. Still not done with the C1, but yeah, just to reassure where we are right now. But yeah, staying on the C1 means we are taking the left here. And in real life there would be quite the S-bend over here. Like a really sharp one, but also kind of a fun one in TXR. But since this is all scaled down, there apparently wasn't enough space for it, so we are just going straight on to the next intersection, which is where we split from the regular C1 line over to Yaesu to the left. I'll follow the C1 for a bit longer. And yeah, this is where we go down below regular street level. Have a lot of bridges. Usually the start also has a bit of a tunnel. And that's where we get back to the start-finish line. You know what, we'll do another quick lap around here and then also check out the Yaesu line. Just to get the full view on that. So the first thing I can tell about this, while the shape and the overall pace is pretty accurate, for me personally there seems to be a distinct lack of on and off ramps. I know this is a scaled down version, so there wouldn't even be that much city to cover between the on and off ramps, but the grand total of 3 options over here seems a bit low. And it gets a bit more pronounced once we get back to the Ginza-Yaesu split. Because as you've just seen, the Ginza section doesn't have a single on or off ramp, so people are just going through there. This will become more important in a moment once we get to the Yaesu line. But yeah, overall this is a really quick lap. This doesn't take all that long. In real life this is definitely a much longer route. I don't have the exact number, but this feels like less than half of that. Already coming back around, can see the Rainbow Bridge in the distance. And this time we'll stay on the left to go to Yaesu. And when it comes to this intersection, while it's accurate that the Yaesu line is on the outside, C1 in the center, I've never seen this part over here. Not on any map or anything. From what I can tell, the middle should be the Yaesu line and the side could maybe be an off-ramp going right into the city. But yeah, both directions should be side by side here. And on the real one, this is only 1 lane per direction. And the corners are also quite a bit sharper. And as we can tell, there aren't really any on and off ramps here either. And somewhere before this part there should be the split where we can go into the tunnel, but once again the tunnel isn't present in this version. So this is also the point where I decided to make this video to begin with, because looking at the map, it's not that easy to tell what's really going on here. But once I noticed that neither the Ginza section nor the Yaesu route really have any on and off ramps, it means that having the split at all is really only there to compare it to the real version. Practically, this is a waste of concrete and space, because real roads are supposed to go somewhere, and all either of these do is go from over here to here, and also of course back the other direction, because this is both directions. But without any on and off ramps, there is no real practical reason to take the detour here. And that made me question a few parts of this entire road network. And honestly, from what I can tell, without being a civil engineer or anything like that, of course it's racified to be good for racing, have wide roads, different corner radii, and be able to make a few good routes here and there. But as a practical city road network, this entire thing kind of falls flat on its face, and I don't know if we couldn't have had both. All that I wanted here to make this believable would have been an on and off ramp for each of these lines. I think that would have done the trick. Maybe also do something different here, have the on and off ramp but have the main highway bypass the road level. And I don't know about this one. Again, this is kind of interesting on its own. But yeah, I think there should at least be a few more on and off ramps here, and that would have definitely helped out quite a bit. Could have maybe even had one. I mean, over here there aren't really any roads. This entire section here is something that you can't really pass through. But yeah, those are just some minor gripes with the entire thing here. So overall, I like it. It's pretty fun, has accurate pacing and all of that. The overall shape is correct, but in some cases it falls a bit short. Moving on to the Rainbow Bridge, this one down here. And to show where this is in real life, I need to move the map a little, so bear with me. Up it comes, and if you look at the arrows down in the bottom right, that's where the real Rainbow Bridge is. So instead of having this intersection, I hate when the mouse is on screen, having this intersection go straight into the Rainbow Bridge, it would go off in this direction and then have another split, make a bit of a turn, and then have the Rainbow Bridge come around here. And honestly, I think that would have also been a good thing for the game. They could have made the intersection here, have the whole thing split off, and make that a ground connection, just turn that part into an on and off ramp for anybody getting into the city or out of the city. I think that would have been a practical one. And then have the Rainbow Bridge come off from here and go just like this, across at a similar angle to the real life one. But yeah, looking at it on the map is only telling half the story, because this is where the Forza network here goes a bit insane, or the Forza version of the map. So if we return to World Builder to get into FreeCam, I'm just gonna quickly change the camera speed. We can now take a really good look at the in-game version of the Rainbow Road, because this is a really special one. First up, the name Rainbow Road comes from the lights that I installed on it. Multicolored, and at night it really looks like a rainbow. And yeah, overall we have two major trusses over here. We have cables spanning the entire thing up. We are basically dealing with a suspension bridge. And even more special is that it's a double-decker suspension bridge. That's also the case in real life. However, the way it's used is completely different. In real life, only the top deck is the expressway. The bottom deck has, I think, a railway track or two, regular roads, and also a pedestrian walkway. So in this case, we don't really have any of that in here, because the lower deck is also part of the expressway, and this is where it gets crazy. Because this entire intersection, while it has splitting roads on this side, and also merging roads for both of these directions, it's not the case on this one. If you come from over here, the C1 outer direction, so going clockwise around the C1 route, you will end up on the top deck. If you want to join C1 outer, you will have to get onto the top deck of the bridge and you will go over here. If you arm with C1 inner and take the route across the bridge, you will end up on the bottom deck. And you can imagine, if you want to go into the C1 inner from down there, you will end up on this side. So basically top deck C1 outer, bottom deck C1 inner, and yeah, this is a bit strange, because this means that if you want to choose a direction at this intersection, you don't get to choose it right here. You will have to make your decision all the way over here at Daikoku. And even worse than this, Daikoku has another route coming in from here. That's the southbound route from this area over here. So this is where I just was and took a left turn. This is once again another double-decker section. Also pretty accurate to the real thing. Sometimes it's both directions side by side, sometimes one on the top of the other. But yeah, if you come down this direction and you wanna go to C1 outer from here, so you wanna go back to the clockwise direction of the C1 expressway, you will just drive through here and stay on the top deck. If you wanna go to the C1 inner, for whatever reason, after all there aren't really any off-ramps there, you would have to get off at Daikoku and get the right line coming on here again. Because once again, you don't make any decisions over here. There are no splitting or merging roads for the bridge over here. This is one direction going this way. This is the other one going that way. So yeah, if you want to make the decision where to go, you will have to do it at Daikoku. And for anybody coming in from this direction, there isn't even the option to just go onto the lower deck. At the very least, they could have maybe had another ramp here that just goes down and connects to this level. But from... can't really show you guys on the map right now. But from that intersection there, all the way down to somewhere over here, I think this is the end. The lower level of the bridge is just one single road. No intersections, no on and off ramps. And yeah, you will just have to follow it from one end to the other. And that's kind of the insane thing in my opinion. So yeah, going off at Daikoku and taking the right on-ramp again is the only way to get into this part. So yeah, major differences to real life, where once again the lower part of the bridge is just for a regular road. Since the Shuto Expressway is kinda isolated with its toll booth system, they use the lower level to take people from anywhere on the street level from one side of Tokyo Bay over to the other one right here. And I think the same could have also worked in this case, especially if they did what I already said, had the intersection over here, go this direction, then split it off, have one part go to the ground, the other one make a turnaround and have the rainbow bridge right here. They could have an on and off ramp right there, connect it to the lower level of the rainbow bridge, go right here. Don't know why the water is doing strange things here. And then from this point on, you just go off in this direction and reach the ground level road somewhere over here. I think it would have been a more sensible version of this. Also, fun fact, the real bridge, you can barely see that on the map that I have there, the left arrow. There's a little circle there, and that is because going off from the north end of the rainbow bridge on the lower level, there is a 270-degree circle that you have to go through. It circles back down to the ground level. And I think something like that could have also been done here. But yeah, as it is right now, this part feels insane. I don't know what I can tell you guys to make it clear just how bonkers the entire idea and way they use this part is. It's really far from sensible. And again, I know that the expressway, if I were to really drive on it, I would have to plan ahead because not all the intersections are straightforward with how some of them don't connect in certain directions. But this is far, far beyond any of that. So I think that's enough about those two things. Let's quickly now talk about Daikoku. And to show you guys Daikoku on the map, we need to once again move it a bit. So with everything else that I showed you, and you know what, maybe we go back to the map in-game to compare and contrast a little bit on the grander scheme of things. So we have the C1 right here, the rainbow bridge over here, and it connects directly to Daikoku. So as I have the other map on screen right now, you would think that Daikoku is right at the bottom right intersection where that kinda lines up pretty well. Since it's also a freeway intersection with the rainbow bridge connecting to one side of it. That's not the case, however. This is where we get to the Wangan, the longer diagonal line going down south there. And Daikoku is located at another part of the Wangan, so if we go a bit further down, and even a bit further down, this is where we reach the Daikoku intersection, or Daikoku parking area. It's in a completely different area that I don't even get to show you unless I were to downsize the entire map here. So they've done quite the feat by moving it up so close to the Tokyo city center. It's usually very, very far away. But I think overall they've done a fascinating job here because, like what we have in-game, there are 3 incoming routes from the expressway. We got one over here. We got another one over here, which is the strange one coming from the Yaesu line. And we have another one over here. The other 2 are just regular street level bridges. But yeah, Daikoku in real life is also a freeway intersection and it works out quite well. I only know the full layout from maps and some drive-through videos and all of that. But as I can tell, the in-game version looks a bit more messy. First up, of course, we have the additional route going into the lower deck of the Rainbow Bridge. But beyond that, I think overall in terms of function it's pretty much accurate, but I feel like the routes are maybe a bit more messy. Also, another fun fact, while of course we have the Rainbow Bridge in-game that connects to the southwest facing part of Daikoku, In real life, there's another big bridge there, which is also a suspension bridge, but from what I can tell, just a single layer bridge. So that would be the Yokohama Bay Bridge. So that's another thing that's kinda accurate in its own right, if we mistake the Rainbow Bridge for the Yokohama Bridge for a moment. But it's fascinating that there's another big bridge in this direction, and they also have a bridge going in here. But yeah, beyond that, I don't think there's really too much to talk about here regarding Daikoku. Can also remove the map now. So it is all a bit more messy, but I think the overall connections that they have here are quite accurate. We have the Wangan coming in from this direction, and from what I remember, this should be either 3 or 4 lanes per side, so it's a bit downscale compared to the real thing. But yeah, having the ramps on the left and right connect over to the left, and then the double-decker part right here, one layer for each direction, and then going into this part here where it splits off to the right, going towards the parking area. And if you stay on the left, you enter another double-decker section that takes you up north. That's pretty accurate to the real thing. So yeah, on that front, they've definitely replicated it correctly. And once again, I think it's quite a feat that they managed to work this out in a way where the individual areas are this recognizable, with the right amount of roads coming off each direction, all of that. I think that's really quite cool. And from what I can tell, the different directions also have the option to either go into the parking area, which is connected to the expressway, so no toll houses here. They are just as isolated as the expressway itself. But there's also another point here going outside the parking area and connecting to the regular road, so this would be the exit point for the expressway. What they've done here, though, I don't really agree with it. From what I can tell in real life, I mean, it kind of does that here. You could switch over from one side to the other, and then it switches off again. So yeah, that does actually work out. For a moment, I thought these would actually be separated, but no. You come on from either side, depending on your direction, and then you can choose to stay on the parking area part or go off to the regular traffic. And the same should also be true for the other direction, which is down below here. Although this is... yeah, this seems to be different. Yeah, this shouldn't be separated, because this basically... yeah, this is weird. Since you have one entry point on the Daikoku parking area and the other one coming in from the street, this means if you come in from the street, you will have to go up north, while when you're on Daikoku, you can then, or instead you have to go further up the circle here and then choose your direction to go on the Rainbow Bridge or what would be the Wangan otherwise. But yeah, really this should be like the other ramp over here, giving you the option to switch over if you want to. And then yeah, also have people that come from Daikoku have the option to go up and go north from here. It's all a bit weird. Although then again, for this bridge, if we look at where these routes lead any further, this one connects to the end of the Yaesu line in this direction and then goes on to the C1 inner. And if you go up here and go this direction, you go on to the... oh no, it's the C1 outer, my bad. If you go up here, you end up on the C1 outer anyways, so in the end it is weird for this part to not really officially allow you to choose direction at this point. But in the end, you end up in the same location anyway, so yeah, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But it's certainly weird compared to the real one. Because from what I can tell, these roads would end up fully merging and then splitting off again, so that you can actually get to choose your direction. After all, this is where you have the choice of either going north from here or staying on the circle, where you then later get the choice to go west or east. And as it is right now, yeah, it doesn't really work like that. I hope I made this clear. It's a minor difference, and in the end, with how the road network ends up working out, it doesn't make much of an actual difference, but yeah, it's certainly not exactly the same. But yeah, I think that's also kind of why I made this video, just some of the minute differences. So overall, looks a bit more spaghetti-like. I had a hard time maneuvering this entire thing, especially the first few times. But once you get used to it, especially if you drive around with the route markers on, just follow the GPS a bit, I think you can manage at least. But yeah, once again, kinda accurate overall. We got the big parking spot, of course, in the center of this big highway ramp circle. But some of the minute differences are definitely there, and they can be a bit of a head scratcher at some point. But I think that's all that I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time for whatever else I'm going to show you. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, until then, as always, have a good one, and bye bye.